Good afternoon. Welcome to another episode of Experience Matters with my special guest, Liz Hamlet. Liz, how you doing this afternoon or this evening?
Yeah, this the almost into evening. Yeah, I'm good, thank you. How are
I am
you?
doing fantastic. Listen, I don't know how that intro video went. It appeared a little glitchy on my end, but I think it plays through on the LinkedIn feed. But something I got to keep working on. Anyways, enough with my intro video. I want to take a moment to thank you for jumping on. I'm excited for our upcoming conversation. I know we had a lot of people with similar excitement join us. In the comments, I've received DMs, and when I look at how many people have registered, you have quite a fan club across the global landscape. So why don't we kick this off? Have you introduce yourself? Tell us who Liz Hamlet is and what what value does she bring along with her business to the LinkedIn community and the global community outside of LinkedIn?
Yeah, well, thanks so much for having me. It's fantastic to see the comments, the welcoming comments, because what we call our anti-socialites, which we'll talk about a bit in a minute, is our community of people that hate networking but need to network. So it's great to see some of them showing up and attending your previous session. So yeah, I'm Liz Hamlet. I'm the founder of Spark Succeed, which is a coaching and consulting business, and I'm also the co-founder of the Antisocial Socialites, which is the community, the networking community for people that hate networking, which sounds like a bit of an oxymoron. But basically, in my day job with Spark Succeed, I help you to create your very own strategy. So that's what I call strategy with attitude. So that's because everyone's business and their scaling and their growth is as unique as they are. So, life's just too short to have those cookie cutter approaches to business, to your growth. And so I help entrepreneurs and organizations to look at their big picture. So looking at their strategy, their sort of forward thinking, and helping them to make more money and more impact and really maximize their growth as well. And just telling you a bit about the antisocial socialite. So that is my idea that I came up with a fellow corporate escapee who I used to work with in the corporate world many years ago. And we both had not great experiences when we'd taken the leap out of corporate to start networking for our own businesses. Some of those things where people were glancing over our shoulders to the next victim in the networking event, or perhaps we just didn't feel like we've found the right people for networking. So we just thought, we should really do something about that. And that's how the Antisocial Socialites has grown. That's our community. We run free monthly events. We've got resources. We speak at events. We do pre-conference workshops and everything to help people to network in a way that works for them, and not necessarily traditional and ripping up the traditional networking rule book, really. And that's how I got to talk to you today. And I know Keith connected us, who's a regular with you. So it's just great to speak a bit more about my journey and how I'm
Well,
helping
that's
other
a
people.
great segue because you said two things that I want to dive into. Before we do that, let's just take a quick look here at Merrill Cass is one of your biggest fans from New Jersey. Uh, when he
Yeah.
heard that you were coming on our show, he was super excited. Sent me a DM and got a little bit of some kudos for being able to land some time with you. So I'm excited. I was humbled that he had shared that with me. So thanks, Meryl. Glad that you can join us. David,
Thank you.
glad that you can join us as well. Anyone who else might be joining us, feel free. Let us know where you're joining from. If you have questions, feel free to drop them in the comments. If you'd like to join us on stage and ask Liz a question directly, ask her yourself. You're welcome to
Yeah.
join us on stage. I will drop the link periodically in the chat for anyone wanting to come up. Paige, welcome aboard. Paige is joining us from Arizona. Yeah, you talked
And
about partnering up with former um, corporate partners,
you,
colleagues. So you transitioned. This isn't something that you've done from the get-go. This is something. This was a pivot or part of a pivot. Tell us a little bit about that. Share your story on how you transitioned from your previous business or corporate roles into founding Spark Succeeds.
yeah. So yeah, no, I think I've always had that sort of entrepreneurial mindset. I mean, even in primary school, I was doing some sort of business thing. So I was like drawing front covers of like sports tournaments and everything, getting a little bit of money. I think at that stage it was like £5, which just seemed like so much money. Always had a little idea. I would be sort of drawing out magazines and different things for people at school. So yeah, I think I always had that in me. But yeah, my career has been a bit of a zigzag. There's always been a bit of a golden thread through. But at uni, I studied languages. I spent a year out in Florence, in Italy. Fantastic year. Still try and get back there as often as I can. And as when you leave university, you'll just think very obviously, what can I go into with languages? And I ended up in travel. From there, I leapfrogged into investment banking, which seems like a bit of a leap, but I was using my languages, French and Italian. Um, and really enjoyed it, but I'm not sure that environment was for me. And I was there for a few years, did all my qualifications, dealt with, you know, many very, very, very rich corporates and individuals. But yeah, it wasn't quite to my personality type, I don't think. And then I ended up in housing. I worked my way through there to sort of corporate leadership, senior leadership. But I think the thread through has always been I've been interested in people, a bit like what you do and that customer journey. Always really been interested in people, how they tick, but also how businesses tick as well. And 19 years ago now, I know I don't look old enough, but 19 years ago, I qualified as a coach. Just from my personal interest, really. I was just interested in personal development, just interested in how I can use that in my career. So I qualified as a coach, and I was always doing sort of coaching as a manager, as a leader. And I was always being approached to mentor others. And that just sort of grew, and I had the opportunity to take a leap out of corporate and take redundancy, and that just seemed like that was the push really for me. And that was sort of 6-7 years ago, and then I ended up doing a bit more qualifications and launched my business. So yeah, and I think really that corporate time, although at the end I wasn't particularly happy, it was a time that I learned a lot about myself. I learned how I didn't want to lead. I learned how I didn't want to be, and that I just wanted the freedom to create and help others, really. And that led me to what I do now, which is I do quote coaching. I run sort of board and team away days. I coach founders, but I also coach leaders. So either on the rise leaders or made it leaders. So, senior leaders, and just really helping them to establish their own, what I call like A&A. So attitude and awesomeness. So, how they lead, confidence, mindset, but also strategies as well. And yeah, that's how I got to where I am today. And I know we'll probably explore a little bit more about the Antisocial Socialites, but yeah, it's been a crazy journey, and I'm always learning and I'm always trying new things. And I think that's what I really love. I know I've heard from you,
Yeah,
from your experience, what you like doing as well now. It's just
it is fun.
fun.
It is.
And it helps other people as well.
You and I share some great similarities. I too I started in banking, but it's fascinating how
Mm,
we get we go through our academic careers, and how often we kind of we our first pivot is shortly after our academic years, where you studied to do or
mm,
follow a passion, and you find yourself doing something completely different. Um, I started in banking. I transitioned into insurance and then into credit. So I was in that financial service wheelhouse and ecosystem for quite some time. Um, but up until recently, when the whole economic downturn took effect, realizing, hey, now's a good time to pivot because I kept finding myself expendable and on the wrong side of conversations that happen. Listen, I've been on both
Yeah,
sides and understand. Um,
yeah,
but it was an opportunity for me to take two passions that I had, and that's coaching and developing people and helping the customer and being customer centric and helping businesses close gaps and pain points. So brought the two together, and now I share and adapt a mantra that suggests, be seen, be heard, be remembered. And so you and I both have a passion for helping people, helping business leaders. And I'll take it a step further and say, even helping the open to work community who find themselves in
yeah,
transition and needing someone to kind of lean on, who has kind of gone through those ebbs and flows. And
yeah,
part of those ebbs and flows is learning and adapting to networking opportunities, because I could
yeah,
tell you, and others will tell you the same, that especially if you're in that open to work community or even in business and trying to sell your products and services, if you just show up with some posts or if you're just applying for jobs, you're not going to get far. You really need to nurture and cultivate a community. And, antisocial socialites is a great name, a great um, a great thought that must have gone behind that. And I'm excited. Let's dive right into antisocial socialites, because I'm sure there's plenty that we can converse around this subject.
yeah, yeah, definitely. And I saw a comment from Meryl earlier to say, is Yolanda, my co-founder, joining us? Unfortunately, she's not, but she sends her love through me. And we're always very in tune, although we're very different as co-founders. We're always really sort of aiming for that main thing. So apologies for anyone that was hoping she might be joining us. She's fabulous.
Well, then
But yeah, I agree.
I'll say we
Sorry,
can
keep
then
going.
look at bringing her on for a future episode.
Yes. Yeah, we can do a double act or a trio, definitely. But I think the networking, like you're saying, it is so important, but it's a huge culture shock. When you have networked in a corporate role, you've got a bit of that sort of protective cloak of the organization, you're part of a bigger thing. And then you leave and you set up your own business, and it's a huge shock because you're then having to like re-establish who you are, your identity as a business owner. Often you're not that clear yet on what your niche is, who your market is, what problem you're solving. And yeah, you feel quite raw. Feels quite vulnerable to go along to those networking events. And I met with Yolanda, it was about 2.5 years ago. Now we co-worked because we were both running our own businesses and we were sort of knew each other. We were in the similar stage. And we both started talking about how rubbish networking could be. Sometimes, we'd just gone along and it just felt very stale, or it felt that people were very cliquey. And we just hated it. We were just saying, I just hate it. We know we've got to do this networking, but it just feels awful. And then we started talking about, God, we really should, if only there was something to help us or something that like actually felt the same way as us. So, we don't need to be traditional to be effective networkers. We don't need to go to traditional networking events, but we want to find things that work for us. And that's really how the concept of the Antisocial Socialites came to be, in that we wanted to rip up that networking rule book that says, you must go in suits, you must go and, this is how you've got to do things, and really look at it much more as a, more than a community. It was actually permission to network different, authentically and on terms. And it just seems to have hit the right spot with so many people globally. I mean, even here we've got people from around the world that have joined us for our free audio events. We always wanted to offer free support, a bit like this show, you know, free support advice. And we bring on like absolutely awesome speakers, all of whom might be slightly renegade, might be slightly rebellious, slightly different, or just approach networking from a different angle. Like we've got someone coming on next month who's talking about it from an adventure mindset, and she is an adventurer. She does go and climb mountains, but also how you can bring adventure into how you approach networking. You know, it's not always about doing an actual adventure. Sometimes it's about how you can be adventurous with networking as well. So yeah, that's really, you know, and what we stand for really is sort of going from awkward to confident networking, and not selling but connecting, and not feeling like outsiders, feeling like an insider, but in a way that works for you. And yeah, it's just been amazing. I mean, we got featured on LinkedIn, do a newsletter called In the Loop, which has got 9.5 million readership globally, and we got featured in that. And suddenly we had like 2,700 people signing up to our events every month, and it was just crazy.
That's a good problem.
I mean, it's dipped off a little bit now. Yeah, it was just a bit out of control, but you know, absolutely crazy. But you know, we constantly tell people about the Antisocial Socialites, and everyone is like, oh, I hate networking, you know, oh yeah, I need that. And it just seems to have hit a moment. And I think, you know, we know, because we felt like that, we felt like outsiders in networking events, and we know that a lot of people are feeling like that. They're just bored with the like suits and, you know, cold warm coffee networking events, or they're getting up at 5 a.m. and having to refer within a set amount of people. You know, it's just, that doesn't work for everyone. Some people that does, but we're there for the people it doesn't work for, really.
And listen, so many of us consider ourselves, or would define ourselves, as being introverts. And those who find themselves as that introverted personality, it becomes so much harder. And, you know, the whole digital landscape was supposed to have made this easier for the introvert, because you no longer have to show up face to face. You can do this from a virtual place, from the comfort of your home. But still, there's some reluctance for some. And then there's some others who aren't receptive to networking, and for a multitude of reasons. I'll reach out to someone who I think would align and fit, and see value in my community. And, you know, someone's first thought might be, all right, this person's going to try to pitch me something. So that your guard is up when someone reaches out unsolicited. It's like, all right, what's the motive? And when your first obstacle is to kind of bring down that barrier, it makes it difficult. But hey, it is a necessary evil, I call it. And if I can help anyone overcome whatever anxiety comes with that, I've built and designed, and I'm growing my community for everyone's benefit. You know, I'm trying to be selfless here, and sharing my stage and demonstrating that, you know, simply being a keyboard warrior and typing in your thoughts and your sentiments just isn't enough anymore, right? I made a commitment to myself that, hey, you need to bring your audible presence or your visual presence to your community. If you want to talk and bring value and gain authority around being seen, heard, and remembered, and helping businesses and helping professionals, then you can't hide behind a keyboard. So I've created these shows. They're here for everyone to participate. They're here for everyone to kind of ease themselves into it. And as courage builds up, people are welcome to join us on stage, which I mentioned I would drop the link. So let me do that again.
And while you're doing that, I'm going to pop on, if you're okay with it, just the link to the Antisocial Socialites. If people want to come to our free events, we've got one coming up.
Absolutely. Drop that in. I'm sure anyone who isn't connected with either of us or with each other in the comments. Hey, here's another networking opportunity. Reach out, connect with each other,
Yeah.
with Liz. Follow her community and her events, and let's make the most out of this so that we can help. There's that saying, it takes a village. Well, I think it takes more than a village today to
Yeah.
get visibility that we're seeking. All right. Now, I'm sure that part of your transition and part of your success, like I'm just ecstatic to hear how you were featured on a LinkedIn publication, and that probably wouldn't have happened if you just sat back and didn't take action and didn't do anything, right? So it's it's
Yeah.
important for us to understand and appreciate that, if to think of an idea or to have uh, a goal that we want to manifest, it's not going to manifest itself
Yeah.
unless we work on uh, whatever steps or however many steps it takes us. Hope. I've said
Yeah.
hope is not a strategy. Let's not hope that things are going to happen to us. Let's not hope that things are going to go our way. You got to put in some sweat equity, roll up your sleeves, and you got to
Yeah.
do some work. And with that comes challenges, right? Which I'm sure
Yeah.
you've had your fair share. I'm not going to ask you to air all your laundry, but can we talk about some of the challenges that you've seen leaders face today? And
Yeah, definitely. So, I've got a really nice, unique viewpoint in that I work with both corporate leaders and I work with founders and entrepreneurs. I could get to see it from both sides. But I think without fail, the biggest thing that universally people are experiencing, probably more so in the corporate, but it's just that perpetual change. So, change is great. Change enables us to have innovations. I've seen fantastic innovations, particularly since COVID, I think, in terms of how companies are approaching things, working more remotely and different things. But on the flip side of that, if we've never got a pause between the different rounds of change, we have no time to pause. We don't have any time to recharge our batteries, and you can lead to burnout when you're just constantly like battered. It's like waves. You're constantly battered by new change, new challenges. And I think I've definitely seen that impacting. It's just a sort of fatigue, just constantly. You can perform really well in change, and the innovation can happen, and you can bring together teams. But I think if there's never a gap, it's just exhausting. I think that's where we can see some of this sort of leader burnout and things where you just don't have chance to pause, take a breath, recoup some of your energy. I don't know if you're seeing that as well, Americo, in the work that you're doing. It's just constant.
I'll share a story as part of my narrative, and I'll answer your question. One of my roles years ago, someone was tracking all the changes that occurred throughout a calendar year. So when you
Oh gosh.
compiled infrastructure changes, product changes, process changes across an entire enterprise, at the end of the year, we had 351 changes. That's almost a change per day,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah. I was going to say change a day
Uh,
without any break
and
in.
you're absolutely right. It leads to burnout. And when it comes to that whole customer journey aspect, burnout is real, especially from the customer's lens. I I highly encourage people and businesses that I work with, what, pause the um, surveys. Everyone loves to collect
Yeah.
feedback. Everyone loves to hear from their
Yeah.
customers, but do it in moderation, right? There's different ways to collect feedback. There's platforms that customers will gravitate to and leave
Yeah.
reviews, but survey fatigue is also a real thing. And if you really want the customers to share valuable insights, stop asking them every time they click or move their mouse, or
Oh
when they
gosh.
get transferred from one department to the next. So how was your experience today? You know, how likely are you to
Yeah.
recommend us? Like, well, you haven't really done anything for me. Stop asking me
Yeah.
how you're doing. Just, you know, just drop what you're doing, stop asking the question, and just help me. And at the end, I'll be
Yeah.
able to decide if whether or not the help that I was provided was actually
And
fulfilling,
made.
and I was delighted and things got done in a timely manner. So yeah, it does happen, and fatigue, burnout is a real thing, not only from a employee and business side, but also from the opposite side. Uh, Customers
Yeah.
prefer, ease, speed, and convenience. And if you keep throwing those questions, hey, how we doing? How we doing? Hey, stop making this about yourself and start making it about me as your customer, right?
Yeah.
So,
Definitely.
so that's my story. Thank you for sharing yours. How about talking about on the at reverse side? We talked about challenges. Let's jump into
Mm.
the rewarding part of what we do. So,
Yeah.
describe something to me. What particularly resonates, or you would call or define as rewarding when it comes to coaching in your experience?
Yeah, I mean, there's so much, and as a coach, you're always learning as well, and you're also often reflecting back on yourself because you help people through things sometimes that it's like the doctors aren't always the most healthy people. But I think it's definitely the shift that you see. I mean, just one example, I'm a coach on a really innovative tech. Um,
Hmm.
education technology accelerator program. And I support the same founder for 20 weeks, seeing them every week for a coaching session. And I think, what's been particularly rewarding is at the start, they set objectives for themselves in terms of the app. Often it's just around the launch or, getting some investment or how they run the team behind the app. But I think for me, what I've seen, which they don't always think about when they're setting objectives, is that shift in how they are as leaders, how visible they are, how what their behaviours are like. What I see often with these founders is they're very ambitious, but often they're quite protectionist. So they just try and do everything. They try and tell everyone in all the team exactly what they need to be doing on a day-to-day basis, and then wonder why they're running around like a headless chicken. So, actually helping them to, be strategic about delegating, but also, and the thing that I know is close to your heart, Americo, which is being visible, being a visible founder, and why it's so important in today's day and age. Like, it's no good to just pop on a update on your LinkedIn saying you're now a founder and that's it. And I know I just want to go back, if you're happy, Americo, to go back, because I know there was a question from Meryl about how we got featured on LinkedIn. And I know that's not directly linked to the
Yeah,
coaching, but are you
yeah.
happy for
Let's
me
let's
to
pause and answer the
respond to that?
question. Absolutely.
Yeah, yeah. So it's still a bit of a mystery, Meryl, but there's a few things that we did to ensure that that happens. So the first one was we're both very visible on LinkedIn. I post every day, sometimes more than once a day. That's not something you need to do necessarily, but I've hit a bit of a cadence. I really enjoy it. It's quite cathartic. I write a lot about my journey, also how I'm helping clients. So if you follow me, if you like what I'm saying and you want to give me a follow, you will see regular updates. But the other thing is, I saw a post about joining the LinkedIn Creators Program, and they run that. I know in the UK they run that every like 6 months or a year or something. And you get to go on that and you have meetings with the people from LinkedIn. They give you some tips in terms of how to get your posts seen and everything. No like secret formulas, but just some sort of strategies. And you get to be on some sort of updates basically. And I sent an email through and I didn't get a reply about what we're doing at the Antisocial Socialites. And I think that might have led to it going to the editorial team and us being featured. But who knows? It could have just been that they picked us up. So sometimes LinkedIn's a little bit secretive in terms of what works, but I think definitely the visibility has helped. And we also invite some quite big hitters. If you've ever joined us, you'll see that our speakers are some pretty big hitters on LinkedIn that come and speak from the kindness of their heart. So, like you said, Americo, if you don't ask,
That's
you don't
right.
get. So, it is about approaching people, asking them. They don't always say yes, but just getting out there, not rather than just waiting for things to happen.
Hey, it's funny you mentioned they don't always say yes. Just yesterday, I had someone respond to my request with no, no, thank you. It's like, all right, fair enough.
Oh, fine.
I can't expect myself to be everyone's cup of tea, but I
Yeah,
responded, very gracefully, very, very friendly. Thank you for your time. Have yourself a wonderful rest of your week. That was my response, and the guard was still up, and I get an immediate response. I said no, thank you. It's like, well, I was only wishing
wow,
you a
yeah,
great rest of your week. So, um, I found it to be comical. But yes, in terms of
yeah,
visibility, I know a lot of people will say it's like be consistent, but don't overdo it. I'm here every day as well. Sometimes it's scheduled content, sometimes it's me jumping on, but I don't see any problem in being here too frequently, provided that
yeah,
you're adding value and you're not constantly selling and being salesy and pitchy, right?
yeah,
Because the minute your
yeah,
persona turns into that pitchy, salesy content, then you're going to start losing your audience. Um,
yeah.
right? I
Agreed.
did a complete shift uh, with my content strategy. I rolled it out last week, and I'm anticipating that it would work because I found myself competing with my own content. I have my live events, then I had my content and my message that I was trying to get out, and I started to feel a little saturated. So I felt, all right, time to
Yeah,
rethink and retool and pivot, and that's perfectly fine, right? This is a living, breathing
yeah,
ecosystem, and when you feel that something isn't working, or you feel that it's time to change it up, you do that. So now my content is complementing my shows. So I'll post
yeah,
content to drive awareness. My main feature are these live events, and then
yeah.
how I repurpose my key learnings, my findings, and how my audience engages is what's going to dictate my my content post the event. And it's gotten good engagement. It gives a variety. Excuse me, gives a
Yeah.
variety for those who consume content differently, and there's a flow. And half half the battle is having process and making sure that your cadence fits and there's a
Yeah,
flow to it, right? Wouldn't you? Right.
agreed.
So I'm
Definitely.
having a blast. This is part of my marketing initiatives. It brings my thought leadership. It brings you know everyone to the stage, and everyone has an opportunity to engage in the conversation. So that
Yeah.
is. I'm going to shut up now because this isn't my hour. This is your hour. uh,
That's
uh,
fine. It's stayed in my throat. So if anyone's listening, I've had a really bad cold and I'm just on the tail end, so I don't normally sound quite this husky. But maybe it's good. Maybe it's good for
so,
business.
so here let's transition and move this conversation along because with us are probably different personas, different audience members who find themselves at different stages.
Yeah,
Some are working,
yeah,
some are in transition, and some are considering part of their transition to include some form of entrepreneurship, solopreneurship, and let's take a moment and talk about that very subject. Any advice that you could share with the audience or someone who's looking to transition from being an employee to being an entrepreneur?
Yeah, definitely. Actually, it was so funny seeing the employee to entrepreneur because I used to run a masterclass called Employee to Entrepreneur. So, yeah, we're very much aligned. So, yeah, I think one of the tempting things to do, particularly if you're taking a leap out of corporate and perhaps your last few months haven't been so positive and that has pushed you towards wanting to leave and start your own business, is learning what to shed from your corporate persona and what to capitalize on. I know when I left, I was in sort of senior leadership and I was like, I don't want to have anything to do with this sector. I don't want to do anything to do with corporate. I just want to do fun stuff. I don't want to, everything's going to be totally different. But then I've sort of worked my way back now. I think it was I needed to do a bit of a full stop and learn who I was out of corporate, that I was a lot more colourful and a lot more, bubbly than I was perhaps allowed myself to when I was in a sort of corporate senior lead role. But I think learning what to shed from the corporate days, but also what to capitalize on. What I see a lot is when people leave corporate from lots of different types of roles and go in and run their own businesses, they almost forget all the really positive things from corporate that can help their business. And I think particularly around, it sounds a bit unsexy, but data, really knowing your numbers, the finances, running it like an actual business rather than just a sort of hobby. And I think that's where people come unstuck a bit. But I think also sort of along the same lines, and it might sound a bit contradictory, but it's like you don't need to build your business like you did in corporate. So, or like anyone else does. So, I talk very much around, your growth and your scaling of your business is very much unique to you. And that you shouldn't need to feel like it's a cookie cutter of another approach. I mean, what we are bombarded with even now, when we've run our businesses for several years, but particularly when you're starting out, is, free 10-step strategy, or, come to my free masterclass, which is always a sales thing. Or, God knows how many hours I've spent wasting time on like not quite getting told the thing, because the thing that they're selling is the thing. But not feeling like you need to copy anyone else, building it in terms of, how much you want to work, even from days a week to what you want to focus on, I think is really important. So that's what I'd said. And I think to wrap all that up, it also that a lot of my clients come to me, and they see a sort of end point. They're like, if only I could do some more courses or have more experience or work with more clients, then I will be this. I would just say that there's no finished article. When you're running your business, you're always in a reinvention. You're always in that re-niching, deciding that you don't actually want to work with this group of people. You might want to work more with this group. So I would say, don't think that there's ever a finished article, and don't see that as a failure. If you're testing things out and they don't work, use one of my favorite words, which is, curiosity and experimentation. This is all just a sort of testing, fine tuning, and that's what your whole business journey will be. There's never an end point. There's never a finished website. There's never a finished business. It's just constantly reinventing, and I think that's part of the fun about it. What do you think, Americo? Do you think that you're in that reinvention?
I'm continuously in a reinvention, and we all cross the same crossroad, some at different times, some take longer. My two words were resilience and persistence, right? And listen, you're going to try things that are not going to work out. You're going to think that you might be things to others that others really don't care for. We can't be all things to all people, no matter how much we try. And I had to fail And just like everyone else, they have to fail themselves to realize that. When I thought I could be all things to all people because, we're all customers and we can help each other's businesses and improve, uh,
Yeah.
raising awareness and, customer service and onboarding a customer. It's all the same. And it's not. And when you start sounding like y- you're trying to be everything to everyone, and then people lose. It's like there's no
Yeah.
credibility. That's a surefire way
Yeah.
to prolong gaining any credibility, right? The
Yeah.
other
Agreed.
advice or suggestion: stop believing anyone who's trying to sell you a 4-hour work week. Hey, this is turnkey. These 10 steps will work, and you can walk away, spend the rest of your life on the beach, and watch the money roll in. It is the furthest thing from the truth. You hear people.
I won't tell you that I bought the book at my early point. So no,
Uh,
it definitely isn't true. But yeah.
uh, you're going to have longer days than you've ever imagined, and I could tell you, I'm doing this, and I understand when people told me, "Hey, understand that this is a long game. There's no surefire way that you're gonna start chugging along and
Yeah.
firing at all cylinders, because you're simply not. Because you're going to learn, you're going to fail, you're going to pivot, and failing is important. And the quicker you fail and the quicker you learn from your failures, the sooner you're
Yeah.
going to get to where you want to be. And just like coaching, and I'll bring the two of them together, celebrate progression. Don't be hard on
Yeah.
yourself if you didn't hit a milestone that you said, "Hey, I want to be at this place by the end of the year." If you're not there, don't be hard on yourself. Celebrate the progress that you've
Yeah.
made that's brought you closer to your goal. And that is vital.
Yeah.
Right. So that is my addition to your sentiment and your response. It is so important. We are our biggest critics, and that's just human nature.
Yeah.
We're so quick to give up on ourselves. Yet, if we were working for someone else, we would work endless hours and put in endless amounts of effort to make sure that we would satisfy a customer, we would satisfy an
Yeah.
employer. But we, for whatever reason, we're not that quick to act and do the same for ourselves.
Yeah.
So,
Agree.
Kendra's jumping in and saying pivots are a natural part of entrepreneurship. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
it's they're necessary. Yeah. If
Yeah.
things aren't changing and you're not pivoting, then you're not learning, and you might be missing out on opportunities because you've got tunnel vision and you can't see the forest through the trees.
Yeah. Definitely.
All right. Great conversation. I'm really enjoying this. Let's jump into uh, just for a moment, podcasting and speaking. You've turned part of your business into podcasting and speaking. How did that come
Yeah.
about?
Yeah. Well, I think it seemed like a natural progression. I think I always had done a level of speaking. I chaired, huge conferences in my corporate days. And I think what I wanted to do, there's only so much impact you can have on a one-to-one basis, before you run out of time in your week. So, that led to, group sessions. It led to the things that I love doing. So I love leading sort of big thinking days. So, strategy days, board away days when they've come to a bit of a standstill, and getting them all out and thinking and, taking away some action points. So, I think the sort of speaking came naturally, and then I've worked for some like absolute dream clients. I mean, I got approached by Space NK. I don't think they're in over
No.
your part of the world, but it was just like a bit like Mecca or Sephora or something, that approached me to be their first ever external keynote speaker at their big sort of leadership away conference basically, and it was just amazing. I just loved it, and I think, this is the thing with visibility. It was through the podcast and just being found on Google that they found me and came, and I ended up running 2 days for them. So yeah, it's just, I love how your journey
Yeah,
takes
absolutely.
you. But the speaking, but the podcast, I have a podcast called How to Spark Success. So that's all about speaking to people. It's just a great excuse for me to invite these, inspirational entrepreneurs and leaders and people in all walks of life to come and talk about their ideas of success. It's really helped me learn a lot. It's also helped me learn that people come through huge adversity. People that you see externally super successful, when you actually hear what they've been through during that time, it's just, it's reassuring, but it's inspirational as well. But I think it really helped me to carve out what success meant. And I think I've been doing that constantly since I left corporate, but that has really changed and evolved. And yeah, it's just a great, probably like you, Americo, to invite people on and have these kind of conversations. It's just to pick their brains about their journeys, how they think about things, how they've made things happen is really inspirational. It made me realize, actually I can, it's almost the sky's the limit. I don't have to limit it to a job profile. I can be a bit of a, portfolio career and still tie it all together.
Yeah. So I tell you, it's great to provide an opportunity for professionals like yourself who are typically on the other side of the conversation, leading the conversation, to give you an opportunity to be a
Yeah,
guest and share your perspective from both sides of the conversation. It is great.
yeah.
So if I'm going to ask you a chicken or egg type of question,
Oh
how
yeah.
how to spark success podcast, was that something that
Yeah.
came first, or is that something that, after you saw success from your coaching, inspired you? Hey, you know what? Let's build a podcast.
Yeah, no, it came, I launched the business. I never thought, oh God, I'm going to do a podcast. But I actually linked up with another, he's a global speaker, in lockdown, and we launched a live show, a bit like this, where we had people listening in and asking questions, called Lockdown and Then What? And that was all about, talking to businesses, how they were pivoting and everything. And we ran a few episodes, but when that finished up, I thought I really liked this, conversational approach, without slides or anything. And that led to my podcast. And I think I've interviewed something like 80 global entrepreneurs and leaders, and found out, learned from them, found out about their journeys, their challenges, things that they've overcome. And, it's been such a fantastic gift. And yeah, it's the gift that keeps on
Absolutely.
giving, because things like this and things like podcasts, will live on in terms of, LinkedIn posts come and goes, but if people are searching, it will come up on Google. So if you can and you're confident to do something like this, I would say definitely make use of these formats, because it will live much longer than just writing a quick
Yeah,
post or something on LinkedIn.
absolutely. Even those in the job market, I have colleagues who are in the talent acquisition space who are suggesting, hey,
Yeah,
show up. Videos are a new way of recruiting, because AI has made curating and fabricating a perfect candidate just so easy that
yeah,
organizations and hiring managers are going to their socials to see, all right, is
yeah,
is this person on paper the same person that shows up on their socials? And this is a great way to be seen, heard, and remembered. So I encourage anyone who is open to the idea to jump right in, because listen, to your point, this is going to get crawled by the other website crawlers, and we now become
Yeah.
part of search. We're now searchable, and it just opens
Yeah.
windows. And if last week I hosted a show. Well, I think I can't even remember anymore. I'm live so often, but the point or I'm trying to make here, I created a post that had a a global map, and I put pinheads and thumbnails to represent people who showed up to the live event and people who engaged with the event outside of the live. And to listen, the reach is
Yeah.
astounding. And I'm being
Yeah.
introduced to people in my hometown by other people who are on the opposite side of the globe.
Brilliant.
And that wouldn't have happened if I just kind of stuck to, all right, who can I meet and engage with and network locally? Because I'm looking
Yeah.
for someone to work with locally. Listen, the world is now everyone's oyster, and everyone has the same opportunity
Yeah.
to bring value to anyone at a global level. So it's the right strategy to adopt and adapt. And I'm sure if anyone has any anxiety around building that strategy, that both Liz and myself will be more than happy to coach and support and get you going.
Yeah.
All
Absolutely.
right, so let's we talked about global speaking. We talked about your podcast. Let's talk about staying on the subject as a global speaker. What was one of your biggest moments, most proud that you'd like to talk about, or you could share?
Oh, I don't. I think it's constantly. I'm constantly doing things that feel like a stretch. So whether that's being on a big stage, whether that's chairing a conference of like 500 people, whether that's speaking to 600 people on an audio event, um, or being on podcasts or anything. I think just for me, it's just always often that little voice in our shoulder, and an opportunity, amazing opportunity comes up, and we are like, oh gosh, am I the right person to share my story, or to host this event, or speak at this event, be on a panel, whatever that opportunity looks like for you. I think generally just say yes. And that's led often, that then goes on to lead to other opportunities. So I think I couldn't probably name one. It's just always trying to get out of the comfort zone, always doing things that feel a bit uncomfortable, that make you feel nervous. And I think just go for it, really.
Ec-
I know
ec-
that's
Excellent answer, because I would provide the same answer if I were to pick one
yeah,
conversation to probably is something out of every conversation, and you nailed it, and I would share the same sentiment. If someone reaches out to you, uh, to the best of your ability, accept it,
yeah,
try to make it work. If the times and dates don't work, try to be accommodating, because if they're reaching out to you, they're seeing something and they're recognizing something that resonates with their community. And
yeah,
you know, our narratives sometimes befuddle us. Like, why would anyone want to
yeah,
hear my story? Why would anyone
yeah,
be interested in what I bring? Believe me and trust me, there are people uh, throughout all of our journeys. Some are ahead of us, we look up to them. Some are
yeah,
trailing us, they look up to us. And it's those people that you got to appreciate and be humbled, that when they're reaching out to you, right? They've now seen you, they've heard you, and
yeah,
it may not have been instantaneously. It could be something that you brought a month ago, a year ago, but they're remembering you and they're trying to bring a little bit of you into their community. So it is wonderful when that happens. And yes, I too wouldn't say I have a favorite event. I enjoy all of them for
yeah,
whatever value they bring. They're all unique. Uh, I I go live. I make a commitment to go live twice a week, and I alternate
Brilliant.
themes. So I have four different subject matters, a few co-hosts that work with me. Um, Kendra is one of my co-hosts. We do a marketing show. So I'll do LinkedIn themes. I'll do marketing. I'll try to be diverse to bring different members of the audience. Uh, and
Yeah.
listen, it is a great experience. So I like your answer, and I got to tell you, it's something that I continue to look forward to doing. And now more than ever, I'm starting to feel some great energy where people say, "Hey, can I come on your show?" Where three months ago,
Brilliant.
say, "Hey, I'm looking for people to join us," and it there would be crickets, and you wouldn't hear anything. It's like, well, who's this Americo guy? What's he asking? He wants me to show up. Like, do I really want to give him some time? But now people are opening up their calendars, and I appreciate everyone who does. You know,
Yeah.
including yourself for giving us an hour of your time. It is a cherished hour. I look forward to showing up and supporting your community just as well. And I think being at the top of the hour, I think this is a great opportunity for us to maybe talk a little bit about and have you bring us home with your definition or your iteration of success. Like you've transitioned, you've built a successful business. What does success look like? How would you define success for anyone who's looking and aspiring to do something similar to what we're doing, or just to do something on their own that may not be similar?
Yeah, I think success for me has definitely changed. Like before in corporate, it was things like seniority, role profile, I want to get up to this particular level. But I think now it's probably most of all, it's being able to have an impact in feeling most like me than I have in my whole career. So, actually, letting out a bit of, when I'm feeling geeky or when I'm passionate, talking about things and, not feeling like I'm putting myself into a box. I can just have the freedom to use my crazy brain in a way that helps my clients, helps organizations, and, not necessarily feeling like I need to think linearly. Is that even a word? Linearly? I think I made up a new word anyway. Thinking in a straight line. Actually using where my brain works really well, which is seeing things that other people don't see and making connections that other people don't make. And I think that's where I feel like me. And I think that's what success is, really feeling like you can use your skills in abundance, and that can have an impact on your clients. And I think that is just fun and when it doesn't feel like
Yeah.
work.
Hell yeah. My goodness. When it doesn't feel like work, that is the best part of it. When you provide someone some clarity, and as someone who's transitioning and wanting to become a business owner, you realize how many hats you're wearing, and then you reach a point where you become reluctant to give some of that up. But at some point, you have to relinquish some of that. And whether it's through investing in technology, or whether it's through scaling and bringing on support, whether it's a coach or an
Yeah,
employee or what have you, it's important to know that at some point you're going to have to focus on your business and
yeah,
you know l- let someone else share and provide some of that clarity, because that is
yeah,
so vital, and it's important to building and defining success for me. uh, I
yeah,
love those moments when I'm talking to someone who knows everything about their business until they don't, and you raise something like, well, I had no idea this was happening. I had no idea this is how customers were thinking, or I had no idea this is why I wasn't selling so much, or people just have success with selling. Oh my goodness, I'm selling so much. My business
Yeah.
is a great success. But when customers start leaving for just as fast as you're bringing them in, and you shed some light, it's like, all right, let's refine your process to stop
Yeah.
this attempt of filling a leaking bucket. Those moments,
Yeah.
those aha moments, are so rewarding, right?
Yeah.
And
Agree.
I mentioned it earlier. Celebrate progression, because success isn't just the destination; it's about the journey, right?
Yeah.
All right. So, anyone watching us on Team Live or those watching us on Team Replay, how can they get a hold of you? Do you have anything that you'd like to share on?
Yeah. Yeah, definitely. So there's the QR code on the screen, but I'm tagged in this as a speaker as well. Please do come and say hi. Let me know if you've got any questions about what we discussed today, or if you want to share your experience of entrepreneurship or going into entrepreneurship. But one thing, if you do want to have sort of entry level support, a nice light touch, not too big an investment, I've got my fantastic growth up level, which is a 5-day email series, which is basically for ambitious entrepreneurs just like you, which is helping you to discover the strategies of high impact founders. And you'll get an email from me every day for 5 days, and a follow up with tasks on areas you can focus on in your business. And I'm giving, I've got a special discount code EXP25. I've popped the link in the LinkedIn comments, and that discount code's valid till the end of May, 31st of May. It's a great way to get started, see if you like me, get some videos from me if you've not heard enough today, and yeah, just get going, get focused on your business for growth and scaling depending on what your ambitions are.
Fantastic. Liz, I want to thank you and take this moment to celebrate. Let's
Oh, wow. Oh, I like that.
thank,
Thank you.
thank you very much. Those of you who joined live, it was great. And just like any other show, if I missed any comments, you'll be sure to hear back from me. I'll be engaging with those comments after the show. Um, and those who are watching on Team Replay, drop us some comments. Let us know what your thoughts are. If you have questions, I always come back and engage with replays as well. On that note, Liz, thank you so kindly for giving us your time and sharing your journey and your story with us. It is a pleasure. I am going to close the room and wish everyone a great rest of your day.
Thanks so much for having me. Take care then.